You are listening to A Sign of Hope, an original podcast from Caritas, Denmark. The fish, the candle, and the rosary, they're all symbols of the Christian faith. But what do they tell us about humanitarian work? In today's conversation, we dive into what it really means to be a faith-based NGO. To explore this, we brought together 5 people, 5 leaders from different nationalities who share the responsibility of leading major faith-based NGOs. The 5 leaders represent 3 different organizations. ADRA, the Adventist Development and Relief Agency, rooted in the Seventh-day Adventist Church, working across Africa, Asia, and Latin America. Dan Church Aid from the Danish Lutheran tradition, active in more than 20 countries, especially in Africa, the Middle East, and Asia. And Caritas, rooted in the Catholic Church, a global network with projects in Europe, the Middle East, Africa, Asia, and Latin America. So, on a busy Wednesday, squeezed in between lunch and a meeting in the Danish Ministry of Foreign Affairs, we managed to bring everyone together in a small podcast studio in Copenhagen to talk about the values and the challenges of being a faith-based organization. And just so you know, this conversation was recorded live, and you can also watch it as a video in the show notes. That said, enjoy the conversation. There we go. All right. So welcome, everyone. I'm so happy you are all here. And it's very special to have you all around the same table today, coming from different contexts, but sharing the experience of working in a faith-based NGO. Let me just hear if the mics are working. Everyone's here?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Great. Let's start by going around the table. And I was thinking, just like in school, when you had to do your name, and then you have to add a detail or a fact about yourself, I would now like you to say your name, your organization, and then imagine that you brought an object, a symbolic object that represents the role of faith in humanitarian work. It can be abstract or concrete. And I asked you to do this beforehand, so I hope you brought something. So let's take a round, name, organization, and this imaginary object. Let's start with ADRA.
My name is Jens Vesterager, and I'm the Secretary General at ADRA Denmark. And I brought something that is actually on my back. It's a reflective patch which says spread light in the world. And I think that is somehow symbolic of how we as faith-based organization want to work. We want to light up, spread hope, and be also reflective of what we have received, the light that we have received.
Wonderful. Next up.
Yeah, I brought my rosary because I see that in use all around the world when people in faith-based organizations need a moment to process what they're experiencing, a moment to meditate and to just withdraw just a little bit. I think in the humanitarian language we would call it our psychosocial tool. It's a helpful tool when basically bombs are flying around your head and you are looking at disasters and you need to somehow be in that and be with the people there. And then it's helpful to just take one step back and sit with your rosary. And also the rosary has a very feminine side to it. So it's also a way of looking at what we're experiencing from a feminine viewpoint.
All right. And just for the listeners, what's your name and which organization?
Forgive me.
No
My
worries.
name is Maria Hammershøy and I'm the Secretary General of Caritas Denmark.
Perfect. Next in line, name and organization first, please.
My name is Anahit, Mkhoyan, and I come from Caritas Georgia. I'm the head of Caritas Georgia. And the object that I thought that represent us very well, actually, it's the grape. And that's the beauty of the culture and also represent the religion, the Christianity in Georgia. And the beauty of the grape is that when you have only one piece there.
Only one of the grapes.
It doesn't say anything to you, but when you have all it together, then it is something very beautiful. And we can say that Caritas and our work represents this being all together that can make the beauty for the world.
And for the listeners only on podcast, Anahit has a keychain with the grapes on it, and that's what you can hear, the small sounds. Yeah, Thank you so much.
Yeah, my name is Jonas. I'm the Secretary General for Stawnychy here in Denmark. I didn't bring anything physically, but perhaps not surprisingly, the symbol that I bring is a fish. The logo of DCA, or Stawnychy, represents a fish and a bread. And in many ways, I think it's a constant reminder to us that we need to share. We are here actually to share with those that also have needs and how to respond to this. And of course, a direct quote to Matthew 28, and where Jesus had 2 fish and 5 bread that he shared and had enough food for everybody.
Beautiful. Thank you. Last in line?
Yes. So my name is Tetiana Stawnychy. I'm the president of Caritas Ukraine. And when I was thinking about what to share, I have a virtual candle with me. I think candle for a lot of different reasons. One is candle is one of the ways by lighting a candle that we pray to God. We pray, and we pray for others as well. But I think even more the symbolism for us has been that when there's a disaster and it seems that there's darkness all around, and you light one candle, you start with one candle and you light it, and it creates a light in the room, and then you light another candle and another candle and another candle and another candle, and together those candles light up an entire space, and they create beauty in the darkness.
Thank you so much. And I think your object becomes even more strong thinking about the war in Ukraine right now, like the light that can shine. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing these things. I think we now have a group of collective images of what it means to be a faith-based NGO that we can hold on to during this conversation. Let me start by asking this question for all of you. What separates a faith identity NGO from a secular NGO? Like the basics. Would you like to start, Maria?
Yeah, sure. I can start. I mean, we, in terms of quality and in terms of the work we do, nothing. But I think that as faith-based, we are human-centered. So our work stems from the dignity of the human person. So, I think all NGOs are very big defenders of the Human Rights Charter, and so are we, of course. But human dignity to us is not something that is given by a court of law or given by a government, or it's because every person is created in the image of God. So we're always looking for that divinity inside the other person, and always looking at the person in front of us, and then looking at how can we support. But having said that, what we do is basically the same as everyone else, and we work with state agencies and so on. So in terms of our quality standards and the way we do meal monitoring, evaluation, learning, and so on, it's the same thing. But we are very human based.
So it's mostly
human centered. I would say.
Yeah. Is it mostly like in the values then? Can you say it like that?
Well, I think I very much agree with what Maria said, but it's very much linked to the why of the organization. Your organizations can define what they do and how they do it, but some cannot really define their why. And I think our why very much comes from what you said, the dignity that is inherent in every human being. So also for me, that's about restoring the dignity that is violated when people are stripped from all supporting themselves or in a very bad situation, that we are trying to restore that dignity through our work. But also for me, it's about, spreading the kingdom of God with justice, compassion, love. And so it's much linked to the why, not so much to how and what, but to the why.
Anahit?
I'd like to catch it and elaborate more on love part of it. So, as everyone knows, Caritas is the word which means loves, and it comes from God, and it says that love is the most important, even among hope and faith. Love is the most important among them, and our organization's name is Love, not only because it is beautiful but it also needs to carry it, because at the end of the day, you're right, why we are doing it and how we are doing it. We are doing the same actions, but it is more important how much love we input in the good actions that we do than just the good action itself, which without love may be just ringing something around.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, I would build on to what Anahit was saying. It's also, there is something that happens when you put a lot of love into an action. And when we talk a lot in crises, the need for psychosocial support and for mental health. And we see in our organizations that first step of healing comes even from a moment of registration, when you have somebody who's putting a lot of love into that first encounter. Yeah, and that when you're in a trauma, very often you feel alone or separated. And it's a war. It's clearly war. It rips that relationship between people, and that love, it restores something deep inside that makes us human, that expresses that humanity. And it's present because, I think, in a lot of ways, because we're community-based. Yeah, that's the other piece. So we're open to all, but it is community-based. We're coming out of pre-existing communities. So it's not something that's created just to address a problem. It's already an existing community that is responding to the needs around it.
And you think that's also specific for the faith-based NGOs?
So it's not exclusive to faith-based, but it's certainly a core of who we are as organizations. Yeah.
All right. Jonas, unless you have something to,
Just a short one, I think, because now you've spoken about love, and I think there's also faith and hope. And to me, the hope element in us being faith-based organization actually carries a responsibility also to connect hope and action. And I mean, you brought the light as the symbol, and I think that's quite important to us, and especially in times now where I actually think there is a call to us, which is more strong than I've heard in many years actually, that people are looking for that hope. Where should it come from, and how do we make it not a hope which is too distant to actually believe in, but something that concretely can make a change to a better world than what we are right now experiencing. And there, I think actually faith-based organizations have a crucial role to play.
Yeah. All right. So there's something with hope. There's something with community. There's something about the why. Let's move on to the next part, where I would like each of you to share a story or a situation from your region or a region in which you work. Think of a moment with a person, a community, a situation where the identity as a faith-based NGO made a difference. It can be positive or it can be more challenging. If we go around again, let's start with you, Jens.
Yeah, I come to think about last time I was in South Sudan, up in a very rural area, and I met with all the faith-based actors in that region or in that area, and that was a committee that was established because the Adventist Church, which we normally not work so closely with, they had taken the initiative to bring all the faith-based actors, all the churches and the Muslims together, because there was a problem with peace and access to certain areas. People could not walk from the one village to the other. And they came together and discussed how they could, foster and promote peace as a concerted effort. And they, went together, not two Adventist pastors, but maybe an Adventist together with a Catholic pastor, together to promote this as a unity. And the result was actually access in the area, peace in the area. And it's something that other organizations, even the UN, had made an attempt to do, but they failed. But once the peace or the faith-based actors came together, united, it made a huge difference. And that really, it was very emotional to hear that story, because it meant so much to that local community.
Yeah, they made a difference where others couldn't make a difference before. How about you, Miriam?
I was actually going to tell a similar story, so I don't want to repeat that. But at the moment, I am following on social media our Caritas in Gaza and the parish there. And they decided, when there was this recently an evacuation order of North Gaza, where they have their compounds and churches and so on, and the resilience of them as faith-based actors is so strong in a very, very difficult situation. So when the evacuation order came, they said, our mission is to be among the victims of war and the poorest of the poor and those who need us. So there's no way we can leave them. So they're still in there. And when I see, they're at Mass and you can hear the bombs exploding just outside the church, I think that is a very, very strong testimony to the resilience of the faith communities. And that goes for many different faith communities, I should say, that they are there before, after, and during the wars, the disasters, the whatever. One of the problems these days is that we are actually, while combating natural disasters, we are combating all these man-made disasters who really aren't necessary. And that constant loss of life, it adds, I think, scars to humanity, which will take generations to recover from. And in that the resilience of the faith community is staying with the poorest, staying with the victims. I could say the same for Ukraine, but and Armenia as well. But anyway.
Yeah, all right. Thank you so much for sharing that as well. Resilience is a theme as well. Anahit, you are in a region with a lot of different religions. How does this come across being a faith-based NGO? What have you experienced?
I'll take the challenge to speak about the challenges. The thing is, when you say that you're a faith-based organization, it is not one thing for everyone being a faith-based organization, because besides being a faith-based, you have you're connected to one church, which is a separate, they're kind of divided too. It's not that we are always ideally in unity, or we don't have the conflicts and fights among ourselves. And in Georgia, we have almost homogeneous Orthodox Church, which is very conservative and sometimes being faith-based, but we are strongly identified as Catholic organization. I had a moment, it was in 2016 when I just joined Caritas Georgia. We were reforming the volunteers movement, and I asked one of the Catholic workers to do the formation of the Heart for the Volunteers group, which it was not only Catholic, but it is mainly Orthodox people. And what happened during that shifted a lot in the way of working that we have done. The Catholic person started doing the prayer in a Catholic way. So there is a way of making prayer too, like we have to identify how different we are as well in order to keep up with commonalities. And what happened is that the Catholic way of prayer, some of the Orthodox volunteers just stood up and walked out of the room and never returned. And that action was pushed us to think about our mission. What is our goal? Is it about pushing our identity so hard that it may offend other identities, or we want to create unity and strong force in unity. And what we have done, we started basing on commonalities mainly. So every action that we're deciding that we do, we decide on commonalities of all different, because it is there two Oriental churches, Latin Church, also in Catholic, there is so much diversity there. And it is a lot of work also to keep up with the commonalities we have, so that we keep up unity, and the unity is the thing which creates multiple effects in reality.
So knowing also what is specific for the faith, and you can actually offend by doing stuff, by doing rituals and stuff, and finding the commonalities instead.
Instead, yes.
Thank you so much also for sharing something that's a little bit more of a struggle. Yeah. Jonas?
Yeah, perhaps interestingly enough, a little bit the opposite actually, when I was thinking about a good example. And I want to bring you into Copenhagen actually in 2023, in the probably a month, 40 days after the horrible attack by Hamas on Israeli communities, and then the attacks on Israeli army into Gaza. And there was a lot of people in Denmark that did not know what to think or believe, and you started to see polarization around opinions. And there was really an outcry for someone to come in and speak about peace and find a venue where that was possible, despite a difference of opinion. So we, together with the cathedral here in Copenhagen, organized a big sermon where we invited broadly out both representatives from the Jewish community and from the Muslim community and from the Christian community around a call for peace, basically. So the focus was not only on Gaza, it was also on Ukraine, it was actually also on Armenia and what was going on there. And it was a completely full church. And many came afterwards and said they were looking for that space where we could actually be together and pray and look for something. So that convening power of faith-based organization, I think, is something that's quite unique and important to highlight.
Beautiful. All right, let's finish this first round with you, Anahit.
So I'd like to share a story from one of our local Caritas in Poltava. So when you work as a humanitarian response organization, you have lots of people coming in for assistance, especially for food and basic things like hygiene, and then shelter. And there was this one. We had this one case where a woman came in for assistance. It was a sectoral assistance, something very particular. They went through the registration form, and our staff member noticed that it was the middle of winter and she was wearing shoes that were completely inappropriate for the season. She had obviously left and didn't have what was needed. And so she took her own boots off and shared it with that person. And so I guess when I think about that particular case, so it doesn't happen every day, but in some ways it presents, I think, this way that I think faith-based organizations don't think just sectorally. We really do look at the human person sitting in front of us in their totality, in everything, all of their needs. So that piece, and then also, that motivation of if you see a brother without a coat and you have to take yours off and share it with your brother. And I think that that expression was just a beautiful expression of faith and following the faith inside your heart.
Yeah, a very concrete action. Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, thank you so much for sharing all of these experiences. And I think they show that faith-based NGOs, they can look very, what the faith factor, you can say, it can look very different depending on the context. Let's move on to the next segment, because I have some questions, or we have some questions that maybe a little more the tricky part also about being a faith-based organization. And I'm looking at you, Anahit. Maybe you can shuffle and then make someone draw a question. So you read the question out loud. And Jonas, you get a question. What is the question?
When many partner organizations in the global south are also faith-based, how do you ensure support doesn't only go to Christian communities and individuals?
And if you have an answer, you're welcome to, and everyone else welcome to join in with their perspective as well. Like, how do we not favor Christian people being a faith-based or Christian-based NGO? Tetiana?
I think that's actually a really simple answer because we are motivated by need, the need that we see in front of us, and we respond to need, period.
And also, we would never ask.
Yeah, we don't. Yeah, we also don't ask.
What religion do you have? We'd never ask.
Yeah, it's not. It's from. I don't know. For us, it's not even a question.
I've had one experience in one country where it was something to be discussed and talked about immediately after a sudden onset natural disaster, where really the needs were enormous, and we were getting feedback that some faith-based organizations were taking care of just of their own sort of community, and where we had to take the dialogue and actually do some training around the humanitarian principles and what that entails in terms of also being a responding organization to a natural disaster. So, and this case, it was a church that didn't have much experience with this, so had never been exposed to it. So this was also lack of capacity, and this was actually something where we had to interact, I would say, and take the dialogue with the partner.
Is it something you would put more focus on since then?
No, I think yes, but in terms of capacity preparedness and having that dialogue and being aware of who are the key responders, particularly in vulnerable communities, and it can be vulnerable both for man-made, for conflict, but certainly also for natural disaster, so that you, prior to an emergency, already have had these discussions. Yeah.
All right. Yeah.
Just to add, also, it's a part of the standard operating procedures that you have complaints mechanisms. So if that happens, it'll be a complaint that comes to the organization, and then it'll be addressed. Because, there are bad people in every organization. There are misunderstandings. There are things happen that shouldn't happen. But when it happens, we address it. And the complaint mechanism is certainly an important tool in that sense also.
All right. You can make someone else draw the next question. Maria gets the honor.
Thank you. The question is, if someone said you can do the same work without the faith dimension, what would your answer be? And it would be, yeah, sure. If you go down to the details, anyone can support. This is not a particularly only Christian thing, to support your neighbor and support whoever is in need. So of course anyone can do what we're doing. But I think in terms of what Jens said, the why we're doing it makes a difference. And I think, for example, in a humanitarian situation, this also is a little bit what Anahit said earlier, it's not important what you're sharing. It's not about that bottle of water or that sandwich. That's just the artifact, you could say. What is important is meeting the other person, looking that other person in the eye, and maybe even shaking hands, and sharing that humanity, that the giver and the receiver are both blessed in this action, because it gives all of us hope in humanity. So that would be maybe, well, I don't know, but to me that is because I'm looking for God in the poor. And if you're not looking for God, you would do it in another way, which might be equally effective. But I think it very much comes down to the why, as Jens said. Yeah.
I would very much agree, but also there are things that I think we can do because we are a faith-based organization. If you look at, for example, negative social norms, child marriages, violence against women, discrimination on people that are living with albinism, or things like that. That is also a part of the work that we're doing. When you bring the faith-based actors on board on this, and you make the imams and the pastors talk about this, people are listening. So I think most of the things, as you are saying, Maria, responding to disasters with food and with shelter and with water, anybody can do that. But there's some things that we are in a better position to do simply because we are faith-based.
All right, we are reaching the end of our conversation. I know there was one more question, but we don't have the time because we're on a schedule and we have some international people who needs to go.
Oh, it's a good question.
It's a good question.
Yeah.
Don't you risk?
All right. You know what? We'll do something different. We will finish with this question because it's a good question. If you read it out loud so everyone can hear it, Anahit.
Don't you risk doing missionary work directly or indirectly when you provide aid to people of other faiths or to people with no faith at all? We don't.
Why not? Some from the outside might disagree.
We don't, because if we communicate our goal and mission why we are there, we don't. And actually, our missionary work is based on the example of the Good Samaritan. So at the end of the day, if we don't, we risk not doing it more. Because then we will be betraying our mission if we don't do directly or indirectly work with other faiths and faith at all. And I want to mark that we have Caritas which are working in total Muslim or other religion environment. At the end of the day, you have no choice of choosing other faith people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think if the answer had been, or if the question was, do you risk being accused of doing missionary work? Then for sure. I mean, that does happen in many different places and countries where we work with. And then again, coming back to information sharing, explaining what we are here to do is quite important, because that is not something you can always control. So being transparent about it, making sure that you share it, and this can be both with authorities and of course with people of other faith also, that there is that you explain why you're there, because otherwise the risk of being accused of missionary work is certainly there.
And do you experience it more, the people or the organizations that are also based in Denmark? Are you accused of it more in Denmark, which is quite secular, than working abroad?
No, I don't think that we're accused of
That's
it.
not your experience.
It's not something we're getting accused of, because we are simply working on the humanitarian imperative, as has been said before. So it's not something that is, and we have signed that code of conduct, all of us, that we are not helping people with the aim of furthering any political or religious agenda. It's based on need. But of course, I also come to think about the Catholic monk. Francis of Assisi, who said, "Preach the gospel at all time. Use words if necessary." So we also sometimes questioned what is the principles behind your organization? I mean, why are you doing this? And then of course we are allowed to say that or refer them to a church. That if you have that question, you can ask the question there. But missionary work about converting people, that's not a part of our agenda.
No, but we try to be examples of our faith.
Exactly.
So if someone would interpret or see me as an example of my faith, that would really make me proud, because usually I'm not a very good example. But that's something different. That's the interpretation the other person has. I would never ask, basically we don't talk about faith because we don't ask people, what is your faith? So unless they ask us, then it's a non-issue.
But not to idealize.
Yeah.
There are Catholics who are sometimes accusing that Catholic organization helps the others. That happens on practical ground from different people. But it's all about, again, explanation and keeping up with the mission.
I think,
final comment from you.
Yeah,
Tetiana.
I think I'm glad Anahit mentioned mission. Yeah, because I think that's when you look at an organization, an NGO, and we all are NGOs, we have a mission. Yeah, and that mission is very human. It's about humanity, and it's about helping your neighbor, which is something that everyone can ascribe to. Yeah, that's a mission that echoes with a lot of people. Yeah, and I think that if you look at that focus and that mission, that's what we have to share. And I think it's well received in most contexts
You've come across. All right. Perfect. Thank you so much. We will end here. Thank you, Jens, Tetiana, Jonas, Anahit, and Maria. Thank you so much for being here today and sharing.
Thanks for having us.
us.
A Sign of Hope is produced by the podcast agency Here, and published by Caritas Denmark with support from DANIDA, Denmark's Development Corporation. You can learn more about the work of Caritas, ADRA and Dan Church Aid in the show notes. Thank you for your time and thank you for listening. And remember to see, to listen and to feel the world around you, the one close to you, but also remember that there is a bigger world out there too.